This is Casual Babble.
Today's conversation is the perfect example of what Casual Babble is all about. It's the space where creativity, entrepreneurship, and culture intersect in real, practical ways. My guest today is Wes Towers, joining us from just outside of Melbourne, Australia. He's the founder of Uplift 360, a digital agency focused on websites, SEO, and what he calls search everywhere optimization, helping businesses grow where their consumers and customers are actually looking and not just where marketing jargon would suggest they be. What makes Wes especially interesting is that he didn't come through a traditional marketing pipeline. He entered the industry back in the 90s when websites weren't even a standard offering at award-winning agencies, and learned by doing it, figuring things out in real time as the digital landscape evolved. Over the years, that hands-on experience led him to niche deeply into construction and trade industries. Not because it was trendy, but because he genuinely connected with people in those industries and understood how they think, work, and communicate. In this episode, we dig into Wes's no-nonsense, results-driven approach to SEO and content strategy, why niching down matters now more than ever, and how humanizing your brand is becoming a competitive advantage in an increasingly automated world. We also explore how creativity fuels entrepreneurship, how entrepreneurship shapes culture, and why vulnerability and clarity may be the most powerful tools businesses have to offer moving forward. Whether you're in marketing, construction, or building something from the ground up, this conversation offers grounded insight you can actually use, not just another layer of buzzwords. So let's hop into Casual Babble, featuring Wes Towers. Well, Wes, thank you so much for being back on with me today. I'm happy that you've been doing good. To kick us off, please introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, and what your current entrepreneurial venture is.
Sure. So Wes Towers, I'm from just outside of Melbourne here in Australia. My business is Uplift 360, and we do websites and we do SEO. We're calling it search everywhere optimization, and we're really niched into the construction industry. So construction trades, building materials, those kind of companies we're working with more and more these days. So exciting times to be alive in the digital world.
Very cool. Now, talk a little bit about, so we got this new kind of focus here on the show where we're going to focus on this kind of cyclical nature between creativity, how that feeds entrepreneurship, and how that entrepreneurship feeds the culture, which of course inspires the next wave of creativity. So focusing in on kind of the beginning of your path and where your creativity comes from. Talk a little bit about your approach to building your current business and how what anything unique about your particular approach in building your business.
Yeah, well, I suppose to think about creativity, I got into the industry back in the 90s. I was studying and chose a career path. Websites weren't really a thing back then. I got into uni for graphic design multimedia, and so long story short, got a job in a marketing company. And this is how far marketing has evolved. That first company, they were an award-winning marketing company.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found them in an awards book in the back and just called them.
Nice.
Got a job there. Yeah. So, but they'd never designed a website. So this is how far things have come. So an award-winning marketing company never designed a website. So they only had one computer connected to the internet on a dial-up modem. We all shared an email account, but they won a project to do a website, and it was a perfect fit for me, really. So they said, "You're the young guy. Better figure out this how to do it." And so
Yeah.
Gave me plenty of time, built the website, and I kind of started in business doing what I'd seen them do, really, because I had no idea about business whatsoever. So you kind of just model on the things that you've seen that you felt were worked, but I was completely naive to business. I was a back office guy, didn't have client-facing experience. And so fast forward to, so started my own business, kind of modeled on what I saw them do. But leaned into websites and my own skill set, websites, SEO, that kind of stuff for anyone and everyone, but really over the course of time niched in. And I think that was probably the most powerful thing that I did. And it kind of Yeah, kind of set me up really well for this next transition, which is the AI revolution. And the ways you're spot on with that model you're kind of thinking about is creativity and entrepreneurship and culture and how they all intertwine and blend. And
Yeah.
man, it's the time for all of that. Like if you're not if you're not pushing the cutting edge of creativity and thinking about how you take your business forward, you're going to be lost in the crowd, really. So yeah, I forgot the question, but I went on a rant there. Sorry about that.
Casual babble. That's the whole point of the show. That's perfect. No, you absolutely did. Yeah, but and I'm curious, as someone who's also previously um pushed a lot of different home services or commercial services for marketing, like construction, irrigation, commercial or residential, this and that. Was there anything in particular that happened to draw you in, to inspire you to focus into the construction industry itself?
Yeah, so it's interesting. A lot of people make the assumption that maybe I came from that background originally, and I
Mhm.
absolutely didn't. I mean, I can
Right.
barely pick up a hammer or nail something, or all that stuff. It's foreign to me. But what I realized was I relate really well to those people, and I think so. Firstly, I noticed a lot of our best clients were in that space. I thought that's
Hmm.
interesting. Why they're the happiest, the most successful, successful outcomes we're producing for these guys. And I would assume, I feel like it's that I just related really well. So I'm a really relational person, and for whatever reason, I seem to connect with these types of businesses, either
Yeah.
whether it be the founder or whether it be the marketing person within a larger entity. It's just seemed to do really well. So just pushed into it. The niche found me more than me going to find it. So yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome. Now talk a little bit about how you kind of have this like really awesome no nonsense and really kind of results driven approach when it comes to SEO. So talk a little bit about what your approach, without giving away the secret sauce, what your particular approach is when you are working with a new client and you're trying to help them shift their marketing from where they're at when you find them to a path that will likely deliver them better results.
Yeah, so these days, and I know you're in the same space in some areas, and you do a whole lot of other things as well. The content strategy is really the pillar of how we optimize websites for
Hmm.
SEO, for search engines, but we're calling it search everywhere optimization, because the same
Which is awesome. I like
principles.
that.
That's that, sorry?
I said, which is awesome. I like that.
Yeah, there's so many acronyms and so on floating around. But yeah, I like the fact that it's still SEO, so we don't have to change too much. But I
Right.
mean, yeah, the same principles and processes realistically they apply, whether it be for Google optimization or for large language models, and that's to fuel them with the content that they need to address the things that people are searching for, the discussions, the conversational topics people might be searching for. So we do it typically, well, we build the website right, so all the foundations are right, and you typically your main web pages are clear, concise, compelling messaging, marketing messaging. But in the blog or the news insight, some people choose to call it, that's where we publish lots of substantial content to touch on all those topics that people might be searching for and thinking about it in a conversational way. So no longer are we just trying to cram a keyword in, say plumber Melbourne. We're not just trying to get that in all the right spots.
Right.
It's far more sophisticated than that now. So it understands the context and the nuance. So we're taking the keyword and thinking about it as a topic. So how do we touch on this topic on multiple different ways, so that we're covering lots of things? Um, a lot of people are concerned, like we're publishing lots for our clients, but what we do is get the voice document and the style guide and everything really solid. So it's really aligned to who they are and what they do and how they communicate, but also everything that's particularly unique with them, we really document that. So it's really solid and it's not generic, that we're producing on their behalf. So, and obviously they check over it and fine tune things, and ideally they'll massage in real life case studies and examples and stories and so on that are unique. But they've got a framework and a structure to get that done faster. So that's kind of what we're
Awesome.
doing. Yeah, yeah. Are you finding the same? Is that kind of how you're playing with it?
Yeah, well, what's interesting in my case is I'm currently pursuing my master's degree in digital marketing while working up a business that I launched 2 years ago. So for me, I'm kind of trying to practically implement what I'm learning as I'm learning it to kind of re-optimize or at least reevaluate how I've been messaging one thing or showcasing something else. And one thing that we're talking about actually kind of recently, and to your point as well, is the importance of making sure that there isn't an over optimization of jargon and like market words, and make sure that the content that's really helping to push a website is more storytelling focused, conversation focused. And so to your point, and I'm curious about your thoughts. What are your kind of overall thoughts on all the marketing jargon that there is out there? SEO, CRMs, KPIs, ETAs, and when we talk about these things, and I find it myself sometimes, it kind of almost creates a language barrier. I know what I'm talking about, but I forget I'm talking to a non-marketing client.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on kind of this whole universe of language that we have as marketers versus, we still have to be personable to clients?
Yeah, 100%. That's so important. And particularly with our niche, a lot of the founders of these companies, they've worked their way up on the tools. And so they're not necessarily computer people. Um, so yeah, you got to really avoid all the jargon and acronyms and so on. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm really intentional in using the minimum amount of jargon and just try to relate to them at where they're at as well. So that's when you're working with the founder. Sometimes I'm coming
Right.
alongside marketing managers within a company, and so that's a whole different conversation. So
Right.
while
Yeah. Yeah.
it's producing the same outcome, it's kind of a whole different conversation, and everyone's at different points as well. Sometimes they're really quite junior at marketing, so you need to support them in a greater way so they look fantastic to their boss. That's
Right. Yeah.
realistically what it is. Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah, but we're happy to support in any way. But
Yeah.
I think I'm
Absolutely.
naturally sort of down to earth, pragmatic in my communication anyway. So that's probably
That
partly why
helps.
I did really well with the niche that
Yeah.
we serve. They're kind of hands-on, practical, um, to the point people as well.
Yeah. That's a good point, and I think that kind of rings true as well to other, like, I don't want to call them home services because construction can be residential or commercial. So I'm not sure what the umbrella term is for, like,
Yeah,
but them also like HVAC, painters,
yeah,
things like people in those kinds of positions have a similar take. They're much more hands on, much more practical. So there has to
yeah,
be consideration of how, again, just to make the jargon a lot more personable. And so
yeah,
on the flip side, though, marketing is such a saturated world. There are so many solutions out there. People have any
yeah,
multitude of special angles or special personas that they push to sell their services over somebody else. So when you're
yeah.
building your business, what was kind of your perception of that prospect, how you're going to cut through that noise and really kind of establish yourself as someone who stands out for construction companies especially?
Yeah, well, I suppose the more the conversations are around them and not us, I mean, the better it always goes. And
Hmm.
when you're working in a niche, and I mean, Australia is a little bit different where because we're a smaller population and
Yeah.
smaller business. So I niched not as tightly as you probably could in the States,
Mm.
for example, where you can get super. I know people get super niched in just HVAC, for example. So
Yeah.
one segment of what we would look after here. So it depends on where you're at and so on. But the more you work with a niche, the more you understand their language. So that's half the battle, just to understand, because every industry has the lingos and acronyms and all this that they just start to use without realizing other people don't understand. So
Yeah.
that's the power of niching. You get to understand them quicker and get the results faster. And so you kind of learn how to communicate your own skill set and how that fits in with what they want to achieve, which is really helpful too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't think people realize a lot of times just how niche something like that can be. I used to work at a more corporate setting, as a marketing specialist. I didn't actually create the campaigns. I delegated certain elements to specialized creative teams. But a lot of the clients I had were construction, but also I had people who were irrigation, people who were this and that. And I found it really interesting how so many of them wanted to push something so specific. Like, for instance, if it was an irrigation company, what they really wanted to push was their winterization service. I don't know if they call it the same thing over there in Australia, but just preparing their systems for winter.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
or in construction, but they specialize in curb appeal. Sorry, landscaping. They specialize in curb appeal landscaping, and just being like,
Yeah.
and I actually had a concern of like, this is great push for a singular service, but I'm a little concerned if it's too niche. Like, are
Yeah.
you going to be found if you're focusing just on winterization or just on curb appeal landscaping? You know, I thought that was crazy, or at least interesting, not crazy per se. But lots of
Yeah.
thoughts there.
Yeah, yeah, well, it's really balancing, isn't it? So you got to niche in tight enough that you can really stand out against the bigger players who target everything. But then, if you're too niche, it's just not enough marketplace.
Right.
It is interesting. But I find I'm always learning it as well for different industries. So, I mean, we hadn't had a demolition company in before, and so I
Oh,
had a
okay.
whole heap of assumptions of what a great project would be for them. But for them, a partial demolition is far better than a full demolition, and it makes sense once they start to explain it because a full demolition, they can just get in and be really rough and ready and just smash the whole thing down. But if it's a
Yeah.
partial demolition, there's a part of the building you can't damage and you've got to be really careful. So it's a higher priced service,
Oh,
which makes sense
yeah.
once they explained it. So came in with the preconceptions of let's go for the big full demolition, but they said no, no, no. Here's a little part that we can play in, and the others aren't really targeting. So there's a massive opportunity for them to explore that. So yeah, there's always little
Gotcha.
learnings. Yeah, learnings that
So
we find
it's not
out.
about the ease of the job; it's about the particulars of that in that particular approach.
Yeah,
That's really interesting. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. There's always these little. Once you get to know a company, and I try to really dig deep. The challenge is sometimes these guys are really short on time. But learn as much as I can about their particular nuance in their specific, the specifics of what makes them tick, and try to
Right.
highlight those strengths. So yeah,
Now, moving from entrepreneurship into how we then feed into the culture, what I've been a question I've been liking to hit people with is kind of how do you either currently see or how do you hope to see what your particular approach in entrepreneurship is or will feed into that culture that will then feed the next wave of creativity.
yeah. So I'm just really sensing, and I suppose the entrepreneurial mind is always trying to predict and sense where things are moving towards, and
Yeah.
so the and that's part of creativity as well. You know, depends on which way you look at creativity, but for the culture aspect, I'm really just trying to humanize our own business and brand and trying to
Hmm.
do that for clients as well, but trying to lead in that space. And even just the vulnerability. So I had a recent Facebook post just about how our human story, it has
Hmm.
scars. And so those war stories, so to speak, are really engaging for people. So to be vulnerable and show your flaws, I think
Hmm.
is going to be really something that stands out as as people, as humans, as culture. Culture is
Hmm.
about humans and the connectivity and how we relate to each other. So I think brands that have the capacity to be vulnerable and humanize are going to really stand out. And that's certainly what I'm pushing to um, excel at. And so, I mean, just even going on podcasts. I mean, I'm not a professional speaker, and I am and are, and I'm trying to get better at it. But I think
You're a good speaker so far. I like it.
Cool. Yeah, so I've done a few now, but I mean, certainly the first few were really quite rusty. But but you get better and you just try your best and learn. But I think even if it's not perfect, people still will relate to it because they realize they're not perfect as well, and they're kind of getting to understand who I am as a person and what makes me tick. And some of that they might like, and some people might not like me at all, and that's fine. That I can't appeal to everybody, and I'm
True.
comfortable with that. So yeah, just trying to humanize my own brand, and that's the culture that I want to set. and lead in that space. So even our clients can start to do that in their own businesses.
Love that. And then another thing that you can relate to, and I can relate to as well, is at least in the earlier stage of entrepreneurship, having everything be bootstrapped, and you being the one who's pushing everything. So, what advice would you give to people who are having the same approach and having to try to figure things out on the fly as they go?
Yeah, it is difficult, isn't it? We all go through that journey, particularly in the early days, of just trying to figure out how to do stuff and just making do with the minute, I'd start with not investing massive amounts of money and just selling my time really and trying
Yeah,
to learn all the other stuff. And that's how we all start. But the sooner you can get to a point in which you can delegate aspects of the way I look at it is you build your business if you're building like I did, you build around yourself, and then you find aspects of yourself that you can delegate to someone else to
right,
do that. And ideally, I look for people who are better in that one thing. I always try to hire people that are better than me in that, obviously, in that thing that they do, because no one can be excellent at everything. But
right.
I think as a solo entrepreneur, as I started out, you kind of you just have to do the best you can in every piece. But the sooner you can start to build a team, and delegate to the very best people in their field, everyone wins that way.
Nice. Now, before we go ahead and call this one to a close, anything upcoming for you guys for your company? Anything special that's going to be happening as we move towards the holidays? Do you want to mention or push in for anything?
Not really. So yeah, what I'm doing right now is getting on as many if there's other podcasters listening to this show, happy to talk about collaborating on that side of things. And I will plan to, once I feel as though I've bedded down guesting on podcast, I'll look at doing my own. I just don't know what
All
that might
right.
be. Yeah. So all that kind of stuff, and you can probably help me out on that side of things. So that's where I'm
Absolutely.
sort of moving. It's kind of the human aspect. I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people, and the power of podcasting really is really phenomenal. It's a collaboration, and you're reaching out with information which is hopefully valuable. You've got two people sharing it to their worlds, their networks.
Yeah,
The reach is phenomenal for the cost of 40
absolutely.
minute call. Fantastic opportunity for businesses, I believe.
Absolutely, and that's kind of why I fell in love with it. My background is in radio, and I loved just the more localized idea of broadcast radio. It was a great feeling to hop on the microphone and know that in that moment you are engaging with hundreds or thousands of people. They're listening to you. You're helping them get connected with the day. You're sharing information. You're helping the community in some way, shape, or form. And then when podcasting kind of caught my eye, I'm like, oh, this is even better because it's not restricted to just local. It's international. You find the right host, you find the right distribution, and you're all over the place. So I absolutely
Yeah,
agree with you there. And that's
yeah,
that's why I love doing
100%.
it.
Yeah, I
All right.
mean, so if anyone wants to connect, obviously connect with me on socials, and then you'll get what I'm sharing about this podcast and others, and what we're up to, and some of the humanization we're trying to achieve through the networks.
Absolutely. I'm going to call. I'm going. Cut off. We're done. Let's go ahead and